why and the impact of your latest book, Evidence of Inquiry. If people are embedding those ideas and they're kind of following through the process of the book, what's your kind of
Mhm.
desired impact? Like, what's your why behind that, and what do you hope? How do you hope that'll impact on educators?
I think in all of my work, I want an inquiry-based approach to leading and teaching and learning to feel approachable. I know that inquiry can feel really ambiguous. We know, those of you who are really farther along in your process, in your practice, the impact that it has on you, and also too, you maybe have forgotten how confusing it was when you first got there. My first step into inquiry was actually at an IB school. I was a fifth grade PYP teacher and heard all these amazing things, and none of it made sense. And there's a lot of language within the IB as well, too, that kind of muddied it up for me. So I'd say like my work now and then this book as well, too, I wanted people to feel like it's accessible, they could go try something and see an impact. And it's not that I want that like kind of dopamine hit of like, yes, I did it, but I want that, yes, I did it and it's making a difference. So I'd say like the accessibility is really important to me as well as just slowing down the transaction of learning. And you've heard me say that. Those are not my words, but I just really love the idea and think we need to slow down. The world is moving very quickly and very fast, and how might we shift our habits and practices in order to slow down to take care of ourselves, to better meet the needs of our learners, and really just say no to the things that are honestly just a waste of time, and to do things a little bit differently. So, I've had an amazing leader who I wrote about and dedicated part of my first book to. Her name is Dorian Marvel, and she once said that the barrier is the way, and that has stuck with me ever since. And I knew that that documentation practice can feel really heavy. And when everybody says data, they're like, oh, that's terrible. But now when I think about data, I think about questions and I think about rich artifacts and evidence and following, the documentation or the things that we create alongside our learners, and how that creates such a different space and opportunity for deeper and more meaningful learning.
Thanks, Jess. Oh my goodness, I've got so much I could pick up from that. But, just
This
the
is why you're you, Becky. You're amazing.
it's like ding, ding, ding.
Mhm,
The slowing down piece.
mhm.
So it's going to take me a few steps to explain what I mean by this. But
Yeah.
so we've just interviewed in Learning Pioneers, we've just looked at enabling conversations with Neil Mercer, James Nottingham, and Ron Richard.
Mhm,
And actually, this is part of the intention of any coming together like this and any kind of connection, especially across the world. You might get connected with new ideas and new speakers and new ways of thinking. So in England, there's a big movement for oracy, for developing oracy, and it's a real strength. It's really kind of taken off. And Neil Mercer, Professor Neil Mercer, is at the heart of that. So his focus is on developing oracy. Um, and he's very well researched on that. And he's got this neat little phrase that we first heard from Guy Claxton the very first time I interviewed him for Learning Pioneers. And it's interthinking. So the idea of interthinking is like this is interthinking. One person shares an idea, another does, another does, another does. And before you know it, you've got a new idea. It's a way of creative thinking. And we were then discussing, and so that I've told you it's a long story to get to a point. So there's another educator called Hal Roberts, who I'd highly recommend looking up to. And he looks at using storytelling as a mantle of the expert as a driver to learning. And then we were realizing that you could kind of interthink whilst you told stories. And then this kind of expanded into how many different ways could you interthink, and what would that look like? And what does that look like in inquiry? What does interthinking look like in play, in a role play or wherever? So, 100 different ways you could interthink. So let's transfer that to slowing down. How many different ways can we slow down? And I've
mhm,
never fully thought about, like, and Guy talks about like a stealth approach to education. So coming at things sideways sometimes. So if we're slowing down, if we value slowing down, and I'm pretty sure everyone on the call resonated with that. And even you saying that, I felt my kind of, my nervous system relax. Like, yeah, I want to slow down.
Mhm.
If we value that, how many different ways are we just tweaking our practice or what we do to show and embody and live that value of slowing down? So
Mhm.
learning walls is such a brilliant way because um, it's visible, it's right there, you can't miss it, and
Mhm.
it forces us to slow down. So we
Mhm.
might say we want to slow down, but the curriculum and the school day and everything, and then before we know it, got to the end of the day and we haven't slowed down. So it's a
Mhm.
way to anchor that slowing down.